Hi, my name is Simon Hedley, known to my clients and partners as a strategic alchemist and an ultimate connector. I'm a chartered accountant who brings together and bridges the worlds of business philosophy, finance, marketing, optimization, ontology, and so much more. Always focused on one thing, the simple idea that can make the difference to people and projects, so we can tip the scales in their favor and get them complete. Pause, Stop, Reset is all about the three little words that can make the difference. They have for me and my clients, and I hope they will for you too. During the show, you'll get to learn about my guests' real-life experiences and the insights and lessons they've learned as they've navigated the resets in their personal and business lives, which you'll be able to leverage yourself. So let's start the show. Hello and welcome to today's episode of Pause, Stop, Reset. Today we are joined by somebody really special, and that is the man, the myth, the legend that is Pete Cohen. I've known Pete on and off for over a few decades, but it's only recently I've really started to get what he's been going through and what he's been doing for other people. He's been a close confidant, one of my clients and friends, and he's somebody that I know you need to get to know. Pete has been a coach and far more than that for a long time. His own navigation of his own challenges has blown me, when actually had me to tears more than once watching his story and how he shows up with it. So with that said, Pete, welcome to Pause, Stop, Reset.
Thank you, Simon. It's an absolute pleasure. And what a fantastic name of a podcast.
Well, I love that you get it right. And it is this work of taking that pause, taking that stop when you have to let things go, and then having a reset. And I call it the three little words that make a difference. We all used it on ourselves, life would get better. You know what I mean?
Well, I've launched a podcast not long ago called Stop to Think. So there's obviously a lot of synergy around this whole idea of stopping. But I think stopping means different things to different people. But I don't think there's ever been a more important time for us to kind of step back and observe what's going on, to pause, to reflect, to reset, because the world has changed. It's so unrecognizable to what it was even yesterday. It's so changing so fast. And it's time. It's definitely time.
It is. And my hope is that these conversations help people start realizing that what they're going through isn't just them, but also collectively, if we can have that pause. And obviously now it's 6 years since lockdown, right? This whole other conversation. That was a big stop, but actually so much of life is carrying on. But let's start with the interesting question to begin with, Pete, which is, so who is Pete today? And what does he work on? What is he focused on? Because people may not know who you are. So who is the man that is Pete Cohen? Who is he, the public? What do you do, as they say?
Well, there's me who I am now, and then there's me who I was a few years ago. And in some respects, I'm incredibly unrecognizable to that person. But who I am is something I have really been exploring in the last 5 years in a way that I could never be the same person. I suppose who I am at my core is I'm someone who's dedicated his life for stopping for people. I've always stopped for people, I think, for insecure reasons, but also because it's kind of like who I am at my core. I remember at my dad's funeral, all of the letters and emails that my dad got, or he didn't get them because he wasn't here anymore, but my mum got, I read them, and they all had a very similar theme, that my dad stopped for people. He always made time for people. And I've done that for most of my life, because I think in stopping for people, something magical can happen. The fact that you connect with people, people feel heard, people feel seen, but then you can learn so much by stopping for people. So I've always done that. But I think in the last 5 years, I've learned to stop for myself, because I never really stopped. I've been on a ridiculous mission to be busy. I've spent my life being busy. I've spent my life rushing around. I had a client that her motto for me was, or affirmation was, Pete Cohen, keep going. I never stopped. I thought stopping was dangerous. But personally, I think life forces you to stop. I think we have different ways that we stop. We stop by reacting every day to the phone ringing, emails, messaging. We react and we stop. And I think life can force us to stop. Very rarely do we actually take time to stop, to pause. But podcasts are actually something I think people often do. It's like listening to the radio, isn't it? You kind of stop and you hear often people having a conversation, and then you start to be curious about what's going on. You might learn something. So in answer to your question, who am I? I'm someone who is dedicated his life for stopping for other people. I'm now absolutely committed to stopping for myself, calming my nervous system down, being more present. Because if I look back with any regrets, I think the biggest regret I have is I wasn't very present in my life because I was just too busy, often just being busy when I didn't need to be.
Beautifully said there, Pete. And I'm echoing along. And I love how you said sort of stopping for people. It's one of the things I love. It's one of my joys. And also, I'm sort of, as you said it, that sort of regret nightmare coming up, those moments where you wanted to, but you've got 3 phones ringing at the same time and you can't give people that attention that you want to give them, right? Like it can be challenging. The mother, the parent, the work colleague, especially those in the health services, often they've only got a short window. And it is those moments when you wish you could have actually just stopped and been with them fully, but you have to navigate. So I love how you said that.
Well, I had a coach for 16 years, and he was a doctor. He was from the Philippines, and I remember him telling me, he was a lot older than me. He said with his first patient that came to see him, this was probably in the 60s or 50s, the patient sat opposite him. The patient started saying what was wrong with him. And then Raphael could think of maybe 20 different things that you could have this problem, you could have that problem. He looked at the wall and he was looking at his certificates and thinking, well, they're not coming off the wall to help this person. So all he did is he just listened, and then he told the patient a story. And after, 5-10 minutes, however long the story was, the patient went, thank you, I feel better. Because he just created space and the person felt held and felt heard. And you're right, in a world where if you're ill, for example, and you go to the doctor, he can't give you much time.
It used to be hours. It wasn't wired that way. Now my mum's a GP trained, so we're jumping in, but literally it's like you have 12 to 15 minutes per patient. And if you're over it, some manager's going, what are you doing wrong? Not actually. Yeah. Carry on, Pete. Sorry, I jumped in.
Yeah, no, it's I think it's part of what obviously your podcast is about, right? It's about stop. You got to stop. If you don't stop, you go around in circles. In fact, a few years ago, I created an app that was called Start One, Stop One. And my current coach, when he got involved in what I was doing, the first thing he said when he looked at everything, his name's Dr. Ray Sylvester. He said, you should change the name of that. I said, to what? He goes, Stop One, Start One, not Start One, Stop One. And as soon as he said that, I thought, oh no, he's absolutely right. My life has been starting things without stopping. And if you start without stopping, chances are history will repeat itself. So for me, stopping is everything. It's absolutely everything. And stopping for me means suspending the out-of-date performance, or suspending the out-of-date persona, or suspending the out-of-date Pete Cohen. Because I could easily be the old Pete Cohen, and I have to work quite hard at letting him go because he's not needed anymore.
Yeah, we talk about bringing the useful stuff from the past, those gems, that wisdom, but you don't have to keep repeating the wheel. And maybe it's a useful couple of distinctions there, maybe to add into or to plus to what you may have already know. One is, for me, the stop is like putting that real handbrake on the car. The pausing is that little stop. You're like, yeah, we're brake, but I'm not really stopping. That momentum's there. It's so hard to really go properly stop. So you're not back into those autopilot routines, especially those winning formulas, those things that work for us, that we go back into what we always do. So really stopping can be really hard, but really freeing, because then you do get the blank slate to go, where are we going now? Whereas so many of us are on that sort of treadmill. Our friend Sarah, it's hard for her to stop because she's got this machine, this business that's going so fast that there are hundreds of staff and things. The other one as well, if you come across much of the Hawaiian work with the kahunas and what they talk about with stories. So when you actually hear that story out and it's heard, it doesn't need to be coached, but it does seem to clear out the body. Because so often, that I've got a lovely friend, he's an award-winning author. His coaching style is like level 1 NLP, right? It's the great, what I'm hearing and what you say is, but you never feel heard with him. You never actually go, gotten, you know what I mean? And he's an awesome guy, but he's young. So it's a fascinating thing.
Yeah, well, that comes to that whole thing of that we think, or I thought for many years that I fix people, and I've got the tools to fix you, and yeah, I have a very different relationship with that right now. I mean, everyone has their own way, right? But when I think about the success I've had with people in the past, people I've coached, I think the greatest success has been not with any tool I've ever given anyone. I'm not saying those tools haven't been effective, but the real thing that's had the biggest effect is when the people have had a chance to look at their life with a fresh pair of eyes. I don't think people really change when we tell them what to do. I think they change when their perspective changes, and when their perspective changes, then the whole world changes. That's definitely been my personal experience. You know.
No, completely, completely. This is one of those. I'm glad we're having the conversation and some nuggets there. And it sounds really said. It's sort of it's common sense, but also it gets confused, right? So much the marketing world is I can help you do X or you hire me to do Y. And if you said what you and I just said, it doesn't always land as, so why am I paying you if I'm doing the work myself? There's a whole
Yeah,
marketing
yeah,
business bit to the industry that's fascinating. And the Western one is generally predicated on there's something wrong with you. Now come to my workshop to get fixed. It's really quite a fascinating dance compared to
yeah,
the Eastern schools. So obviously one of the things, and we go as heavy or light as you want, is the Hannah part of your journey. But I'm also guessing there have been other parts of your life that have been big shifts and resets. If you look back on it, what were sort of the most life trajectory changing shifts and resets in Pete's life?
Well, thank you for the question, first and foremost. I was working at an event in France, and this lady said, "We're all being called to something. And if we don't answer the call gets louder and louder and louder." And I stopped to think about that. And I thought, I think that's very true of my own life. So there's been many stop moments, but I didn't really answer the call. I just went back into same old. But there have been some very life-defining moments for me. You know, in my 20s, I was diagnosed with chronic fatigue, which probably wouldn't surprise you or anybody that has seen me, because it's like, where do you get your energy from? You never stop. I worked ridiculous hours, 70, 80, 90 hours a week. I was personal training. And it was no surprise. Eventually, my body started to attack itself. I was competing in a fitness competition and I collapsed. And then I started being ill, like flu-like symptoms. Then I was okay. Then flu-like symptoms. And I had blood tests and I was diagnosed with Epstein-Barr virus, which is chronic fatigue. I had that for 10 years. And not many people knew. And on the inside, I felt like shit so much of the time. But then my professional career, really started to take off, in writing books, the biggest publishers in the world, being on television, speaking on stages. To the outside world, you'd think, wow, he's a success. But inside, I was dying, and that was massively life defining. And I had to learn, and it took a long time to manage myself and manage my energy. And I'm still learning to manage myself. I don't think I can't speak for everyone, but from my experience of the people I know and have worked with, managing oneself and one's emotions and thoughts and feelings, managing their identity, their beliefs, all of this, managing relationships, it is not straightforward. So that's probably been one of the major life-defining moments. What about you? What's been one of your big life-defining moments?
Well, again, on the outside, people didn't know that I had extreme body pain for 20 years. I was having chronic stomach pain for 5 years, Pete. So I'd have a coffee with our friend. She'd be fine. I'd be double over in bed for a week. And it's not the stuff that us strong Western British men go, "Hi guys, I'm having stomach pain today." That ended up with 3 surgeries, my sigmoid colon being cut out, being on my back, like not walking for properly. It was weird because it was out of nowhereville. I was a Tai Chi gold medalist. I've done lots of stuff, Iron Man type person, not triathlete, but rock solid. To physically not okay in a way that came out of nowhere, despite being around the medical training and all these things, right? You can imagine the friends were reaching out to going, hey, what are your advice? And spending a fortune and time and this and this. And it ended up being my stomach had basically shrunk to a nut and was going to kill me. So that was huge, if I'm honest.
Wow. What do you think caused that? What do you think was behind that? Do you think there was anything related, emotional, trauma related?
Again, I love that you're the first guest in a while to do this. This is really cool.
So, well, this is a conversation.
This is why we're like fellow men. Should have met up ages ago. So this is the good thing. So there's a couple of things. One, the surgeon in London who I got referred to, who was awesome, was not the friendly surgeon. Like I've been told, go see him. He'll take care of it. You'll be fine. And he's like, no. This is deadly serious. You could die next. Like, this is like, it was like, oh, okay. You know what I mean? Like, you're going in for your car MOT thinking it'll be fine. And he's like, no, this is not a walk in the park done. What I end up having, pretty bit like with you with the stuff you went through, used to be around, but it was a minority. And it was when guys got to their 70s, their 80s. He's seeing that in kids who are 18 and 19 years old now. And this is a guy with 50, 40, like, decades of history. He's like, we're not sure what's going on, but that something has changed is not questionable. But like the British weather at the moment, right? We could go, yeah, it's normal. No, this last summer has not been a normal summer heat-wise. So now, do I think I faced, and we'll keep it light for today, I've been standing for stuff in a world where nobody really stands for it, right? So listening to people and having that stand for them, being really able to hear them, it's not always like light work, even though you're not doing anything, being in the room. And sometimes there is, and it's, I should have joked a bit earlier, like I'm a northern guy that grew up down south. So up north, they'd be like, hey, Pete, good to see you, mate. It's a much different energy than the London thing. London on the surface is very, everybody's friendly. But, you know, there's that sort of hostility of road rage and tube rage under the surface where people are sort of, they're stressed. So the actual environmental is stressed. So there's a bit of that. A bit, honestly, I have absolutely no idea. I do know that one of my school friends, sadly, Andrew, passed away. And it was a real head screwer because he was the elite sportsman, success story. And again, nobody knew what he was going through. But him and I had almost the same symptoms in a way that's weird. But I'm not into like conspiracy with it. I'm just into... I don't really know. It's just like...
So again, I was so lucky. I worked with someone for 16 years, who was a doctor and he was into energy medicine and just, he would always say to me with things like that, it's never one thing. It could be nothing, or it could be just bad luck, which would be one thing, or it could be many things. He said it could be 7 or more, but 7 as in 7 sides to everything, front, back, left, right, up, down, in you. That's why, with Tai Chi, and it's always moving around the whole of you, the whole thing. And when you said that, the feeling I got is that because you're such a caring person, you've absorbed a lot of stuff that just wasn't yours.
I love that you get that, and one of my dear friends calls me a hedgehog, Pete, like a little hyper hedgehog in the UK, because we learn to be very like I have no emotions, but actually no, we're completely emotional, pretending we're like calm professionals. The other side of it, and it sounds weird to admit, but hey, we're having that kind of a day, and why not? I was asked to basically bury who I was publicly for a long time. So let's use the Tai Chi Chuan, right? I was doing that as a martial art when I was 15, 16. I found a global fraud when I was 21. I wasn't in special forces. I wasn't in underground police forces, but you bump into those. So that world where what you know about XYZ, don't tell anybody. Not because you're criminals, the opposite. Actually, like even the therapy world, there are some therapists that will say, Pete, you never know who my client was, and they'll tell you all about the clients. Where you and I go, that's not really, there's a boundary line. So part of what lets us do what we're doing is holding that container, while sometimes what is in public going on isn't quite okay. And it's a strange time. So, but yeah, no, it is. I think we touched on earlier, like the UK is not how it used to be. I'm very glad we don't live in a world of highwaymen and, guys in pubs beating each other up on a Friday night. That's weird. But nor do we live in a world that is Eden and harmonious. So there's a very strange balance with that one.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you for sharing. It's always fascinating to get to see the different layers. I'm not doing that, as you know, as some form of deflection. You can ask me anything.
Yeah, that's a great question. Let me ask you that back. Yeah, no, but and it was also, to be blunt, and I don't know how you went through with yours, is when you realize that for somebody that is hyper connected or thousands of connections, the number that actually really got it and were there when it counted isn't always as many as you think. Sometimes you haven't asked, sometimes they haven't got availability, capacity, but there can be that gap around how friends support each other, right? And I'm always a big believer that, friends don't have to do anything to be a friend, but there's also a bit sometimes when you go, I would have appreciated somebody else with a cup of tea, so.
Yeah, but that's that whole piece about showing up, being able to show up for people. And yeah, it's fascinating.
And yeah, and you're getting me being real. So that's a good bit of it. I mean, you touched on it a lot about stopping. Obviously, you've realized for various reasons the importance of that. Is there anything else you wish you could have given the younger Pete? Like, if you could go back, I'm sure you know that question or that the essence of it, but like, what would it be and why? What's the thing that you wish you could have given the younger Pete?
I think there's a few things, but the first thing that comes to mind is just never lose your sense of humor. I don't think I ever have lost it, but I think I probably could have used it a lot more. And I suppose I would have said to myself, as obvious as it sounds, be where you are. Understand that the future is full of uncertainty and anxiety. The future is this moment. Just make sure you're more present with everything that you're doing, because I wish I'd been more present with many things in my life. That's why I don't really remember many things, because I wasn't very present. But the things were moving. I was moving so fast that I couldn't really record what was going on because it was so fast. So that's the advice I would have given my younger self for sure.
Yeah, I love that, and I wouldn't have guessed. I'm sometimes the opposite, which is a day is like a week of time or a month of time, but then sometimes 2 years goes by, and you're like, "How's it been 2 years?" Because the moment sort of took over, and especially, and it seems to be the theme of today, this thing about the futures being changeable. We know that, but it is how do you navigate you've no idea what's coming next week, next month, and you need to plan and be thinking about it. That modern world doesn't really set up so easily, I don't think, I mean, you and I must have friends that are mega handled. By that, I mean, they've got teams, they've got finances, they cannot work for 5 years and they're fine. But more and more, most people, even the ones I know that are super successful, there's still this cash flow burn, this lifestyle burn that wasn't like that 20 years ago. It's a really interesting dynamic, let alone with family and kids. So that's really interesting. I mean, we're going to sort of get, I think, probably one of the key questions really, which is what's the event and experience that most caused you to have to pause, stop and reset? And how did you get through it? What helped you navigate that process?
Well, it was definitely the passing of my wife in 2023. That most definitely, that was the point, I suppose, where everything changed. But the changing has taken really 3 years in terms of dealing with the grief and how do I say? I couldn't outrun the grief, so I can outrun everything. I could outrun myself. That's what I've been doing most of my life, just running away from a very poor relationship with myself, from feeling that I might be exposed or found out, or that people would find out I wasn't who I was pretending to be. But Hannah passing, that definitely was a place where everything stopped. And a few years to that, so my dad died in 2018, and I was very much there for him and for my mum. And then my mum got sick, and she died in 2021, and I was there with my brother as we navigated that period, and with my mum when she took her last breath. And then didn't really have a chance to deal with any of that, because within a few months, my wife, Anna, got sick for the second time. She had a very serious brain tumor, glioblastoma multiforme. She was diagnosed originally with brain cancer in 2011, after we'd only been together for a year. And it was an incredible fight. The fight that started in 2011 was just unreal. It's a long story. As you know, we've made a documentary about this that has won multiple film festivals around the world. It's an incredible story. And I'm delighted that I've been able to share that story with the world, because my goal was for people to see who this person was and to see what's possible, see what a loving relationship is. But that has been the most defining thing. And I'm so grateful in some respects, because as a cliched as it sounds, the hardest thing I've ever endured has become the making of me. I am who I am today because of that. And that, for me, is, for anyone that's ever had any grief, people tend to talk about the 5 stages of grief, which I don't know whether applies to everyone, but that's the stages of denial, anger, bargaining, when you're going, I could have did that, I could have did this, I could have done that, depression, and then acceptance. And acceptance to me has come in the form of celebration, to celebrate who Hannah was. And I celebrate her now, talking to you about her, because I think what a great thing to do, to celebrate the lives of the people that have touched us in some way, shape, or form. I do that with my dad. I do that with my mum. I do that with my coach, who also died in 2016. I do that with lots of people who aren't here. But I also do that with people who are still here, who have poured into me, so I can pour into you and the people that listen to this. And who knows where that's going to go. So it has been the most defining thing, but it's been the most liberating thing, because I feel free in many respects now that I didn't feel. I was imprisoned. Well, I think we're all imprisoned by our pasts, I think, in some way. I say we all. I can't speak for everyone. I can speak for myself. I was very imprisoned by my own making, and now I feel like I've been set free.
It makes a lot of sense. And again, I love how you clarify, like, anything we say is us speaking from our experience. It's not everybody's unique, but there is, it's definitely, and I just, British UK, we have a weird thing about death, mortality, honoring that is odd. And it's not how it used to be. And I don't think it's healthy. I was up in a cemetery, not as you do, but walking through one up in West London over the weekend. And you do see these thousands of graves, many of which have been forgotten. And I know you've probably been around London in the House of Lords, House of Commons. First time I went in there, I bawled my eyes out, because I got present to the people that built it and why they built it 300 years ago, that stood for it. So that way you said of those pourings, but also, if you can't always be like this in every meeting, with 1 second while you're remembering your Tai Chi teacher, while you're remembering those things, and balancing that emotion is quite interesting and challenging for me. It's the bit I said, we have a couple of coffees overdue. And I love how you have able to presence Hannah. She comes across in those videos, and I think it's part of what I'm hoping as society we find a way to shift. I won't name her on the show. There's somebody that's been going through it for 5-6 years, dad with major illnesses, mum with stuff. And it is that locked in where you're loving, trying to support, but it's not a natural ease and grace, right? You've got the wood in the background. We know trees come and go, right? But when the oak tree falls off, it's hard not to grieve it. What helped you navigate it, Pete? What was really, did you have the dark nights of the soul? What helped you get through those moments?
Yeah, no, definitely. Some really dark moments of, I still get them, but they just don't tend to last very long. I live in the house where Hannah and I lived. This was our house. And so there are still many memories. But how I got through it was finding a way to celebrate and having someone who was there and still is there. This is a man who I met on social media app Clubhouse that was really big during lockdown, and we became really good friends. It was funny because I thought I want to work with this guy. I want us to do something together because there was so much synergy. And he goes, I think we've got to get to know each other. And I was going, but we've spent hours and hours talking. What are you talking about? You know? And then when Hannah got sick again, and I knew at some point, okay, she's going to die. I would speak to him because he's in the States. I would phone him at like 2 or 3 in the morning because I couldn't sleep. I'd go out for a walk. My father-in-law was in the house, so I could leave Hannah. And we would talk for hours and hours and hours. And that's when we got to know each other. And, I'm sure, you know all about the hero's journey, that every hero needs a guide. We all need guides. And I've been guided by some amazing people, Hannah being one of those guides. That's how I got through it. My brother, who's been amazing, he was there. He was holding Hannah's hand when she took her last breath with me, and the same with my mum. It's not. Lots of people have supported us. Lots of people. That's another reason I had to make this film, because from 2011, people saw this story. We were raising money for treatment in America. So Hannah's had thousands of people follow her, and that's also been the joy, I suppose, of how I've got through it, is because this story has now got out. And I've been on, as I was on Davina McCall's podcast recently. We've had about 5,000 people sign up to watch it, and then I'm getting emails of people who are inspired by Hannah. You get through something because we can, but again, as I know, probably better than most, is how something is forged. Something is forged by what it's been through. Like a samurai sword. How are those things forged? By it gets melted, they bring it out, they smash it, then they put it back in, they take it out, and it's forged through something that could have broken it. But I think that's how everything grows. It's what things have to withstand. I've got an olive tree out here in the garden, and it's beautiful, but there's a big wind that comes off the South Downs here, and it pushes the tree, and I've been concerned about it. So I supported the tree by putting some concrete blocks around it so it can grow. Now, I've supported nature, which we should all be doing, not necessarily with concrete. But what I'm trying to say here is, we are all challenged, I think, in life, to find a way to deal with what is difficult. Because let's face it, we're all going to face difficulty in our life. Isn't that not life? Difficulty? Is life not necessarily what you achieve, but what you endured, what you overcame, what you found peace in? Yeah.
I'm making a few notes here and a couple of things. So, firstly, thank you for saying what you said the way you said it. The tears in the back of the head, because there's a couple of things. Do you know the story about the trees and how the tree that's been hit by lightning and twisted by stuff are the beautiful trees?
Mm-hmm.
And actually,
well, say it again. Say it.
So Jamie, an old client friend, talked about it. It was like a Ram Dass type thing, an old Buddhist type thing, which is when you look around a forest, you have these trees that have got twists and turns. The branches have been bent by the wind. They've had things go wrong with them, and they make a gorgeous, wonderful, beautiful tree. As humans, we tend to not think that way. Those chips, those scars, they're not perfect, straight line, ideal trees. But trees in nature aren't like that. They've got those knots, they've got those hooks, they've got those. That forcing through nature comes to mind, the way you talked about it, and the forging. They talk about iron forging iron. And that there is something, if you have that spiritual side, and we sort of, why did it happen? A bit of me doesn't like this answer, but I know I went through what I went through that allowed me to help X, Y, and Z when they went what they went through. I don't know if you know Joe Gregory. You know Joe? Joe
No.
is an awesome human. He's a publisher that's been helping people like Daniel and others for years. He himself went through stomach stuff. So when I was going through mine, he's like, yeah, I know about that, blah, blah, blah. And if he hadn't gone through his bit, I would had a whole different thing about what I went through. And I don't think he'd mind me sharing that. So it is those people helping each other that I think is really interesting. And I just sort of out you for it. Like, I didn't know you were going on Davina's podcast. I just thought you were in London. You're like, yeah, I've got to go somewhere. I'm a bit busy. And you were like you are now, being humble and human, which so many of the people that look like you aren't. They'd have been like, sorry, I'm very busy right now. Look, they go into that frame, which is nothing wrong with it. But it was one of those bits about you that had me go, I really need to catch up with Pete, because the way you were about it, you didn't name drop. I didn't even know you were going on the show. And I was like, why did you message me when you're on the way? Like, it's a statement for me of who you actually are being that was kind of mind boggling. Does that make sense? Because most I know that like that aren't like that.
Yeah, I think so. I do. There's always been the Pete, the performance, and then the Pete, the social Pete, and then there's the solo Pete, who I really am. And at the heart of who I am, I'm a very humble person, just like my parents were very, very humble. My coach, when he was alive, Ray, who's alive today, he's very humble, very, very humble. Raphael was ridiculously humble. He could have had anything, he could have done anything. But he was a small little Filipino guy. Humble is just, move your ego out of the way and just be a good person.
Yeah, well, it touches on this challenge of so you do lots of different things. It's hard to pin down. This is this kicker. I was very happy being invisible online behind the scenes, and yet the modern world wants to know, so what have you got? Where's your stuff? It's this funny balance. But I do believe, and it's interesting, it's sort of come back round. People are just saying, look, if you can be nice, if you can be good, if you can handle that, it works. And I guess one question for, and it's not in the script, it's not what we planned, it's not there. One thing I found when I was going through it was a lot of people showed up in that coach prospect mindset. You with me? It's like, aha, yes, I have a program for that. Because you've got a problem of vulnerability, suddenly it was that mode. And any thoughts on that?
I can't stand that myself, but I totally understand how it works. And I've bought into it, in terms of, marketing something. You got a problem and I've got a solution. And that's kind of how the world kind of revolves. I mean, the amount of things I've bought because of the way they are marketed to me. But in terms of how I want to market myself to the world, I don't want to market myself to the world in a way that's transactional. I want it to be beyond a transaction. And I think that's why when you know who you are and you recognize your own value, you'll probably be able to withstand more. And it comes back to the trees. A tree knows it's a tree, right? And it knows it has to grow. And it grows under the ground. And most of its growth you'll never see. And it's growing in the dark. And it can withstand. And if it can't withstand, because nature can be quite cruel. But for us that are still here and mere mortals, I don't think there's ever been a more important time to, and this is what I've learned from my current coach. Who are you? What's your value? Who do you serve? And how do you serve? And I've played with those questions for 5 years. And I'm still playing with those questions because he has a newsletter which is called Talent. And it's all about, how do you manage your talent? Well, you've got to know a few things. You've got to equip yourself. And I think the greatest thing you can equip yourself with is a knowing of who you are. And what you and I have experienced, we have a profound sense of who we are because of what we've been through. But knowing our value is also very, very interesting, because if I said, what's my time worth? What's your time worth? Well, we could say, well, I charge this amount of an hour. Well, is it more than that? Is it less than that? The way I'd look at it is, no, this is priceless. I'm sharing who I am with you. We can put a cost to it if you want to, but I think it's more than that.
Yeah, it's part of weirdly the old British way, which is it's not just what you do, it's how you're doing it and why you're doing it. There's a great thing recently that's come out on Ryan's, Ryan Levesque. You don't know Ryan, to
yes,
you.
Yeah.
Awesome, weird, magical human, confusing in many ways, but he's awesome. And he was sharing something, got an author's thing about, one of Gary's questions of what's the ROI of your mum? right?
Yeah, yeah,
It's like,
yeah,
well, trying to swap that one. And I think
yeah.
it is part of this modern conundrum between handling the rent payment, the cash payment, the property prices, and then actually what matters. You've lived through it, which is, do you want $1 billion or another 6 months? And you go, I'll have 6 months. It's that when you're facing a surgery and you're dying the next day, it's like, I'd rather have another week, please, with these people. There is that going on. And so much of what's valuable is confused by the modern world. We're going. It's lovely enjoying the conversation, and I hope you're listening, you're getting some value, because I know I am. And this is one of those to come back to and get a sense of why Pete is an awesome human being to get to know more. People listening might be wanting to make a big shift in their life. You touched on a few things, and I love those questions. They're really lovely. Do you have any other suggestion? Like, if they were like the Pete coaching client, what's something that like you go, look, go do this? What's your kind of top suggestion for somebody?
Well, I suppose everyone is different. So I can only really talk about myself and what works for me. And I think it really revolves around intentions. I mean, that's why I have the word tattooed on my arm, intentions, because I believe everything has an intention, and everything's intention is to grow. Obviously we're going to die, but before we die, we are still growing. It's this weird idea, this weird kind of dichotomy that, yeah, you're still growing, and you can still grow by what you learn and what you do to your body. But finding a way, and also pouring into other people. I think when you help and support other people and you give value to others, that's also another way to grow. But I would just encourage people to think about this quote that a French monk said, I think in the 13th century, that the road to hell is paved with good intention. So there's intention, and then there's intentions. And if you look at my tattoo, the S is in red. Originally, I got the tattoo without the S, just with the word intention. And then my coach, Dr. Ray, said, you should get an S on the end. And I went, why? He said his intention is a noun. Intentions is a verb. A verb is something that is alive. So intentions is the doing of something. So I suppose understand that if there's something that you want to do or become or change in what I call the big three, the three areas of life that most people are interested in some form of improvement, which is their health and their energy, their relationships with others and themselves, and then their wealth and their work and their service. These are the areas that most of us are interested in some way. If we're intentional in those areas, what does that mean? It means that you understand that there is the stretching out of something. That when you're intentional, you understand that what you do today is going to impact on tomorrow or the next day. So just understand that if you want to make change in your life, there's going to be some resistance to that intention. That's the opposition that comes around things that want to grow. So the olive tree, the wind is going to blow that tree, or the temperature, the heat. It's withstanding the heat. Can it withstand the cold? Probably. It's got a strong foundation. It's actually got Hannah's ashes. I forgot about that. Some of Hannah's ashes are under the ground, so it's got a strong foundation. My point here is, my advice is understand the power of intentions, that everything has an intention. With anything you want to do, anything you want to change, there's going to be some opposition, probably. And most of that opposition could be internally by a part of you that's going, this isn't me, I don't want to do this, this is hard. Moving through the resistance is where the magic is. That's where growth happens. So if you feel resistance, it's probably a good thing. It's probably a sign that there's something here to lean into. Moving through it is where you often feel the power of having done something that was difficult. So in a world that has become so comfortable, and people don't tend to do things they don't feel that they have to anymore, because we favor comfort over challenge, I suppose. But yeah, recognize and understand the power of intentions. That would be my my best bit of advice. What do you think?
Good turning around. I love what you shared about intentions. It's a really interesting bit, and we're not in quote swapping, but do you know the one about the commitment quote about there's boldness and magic in it? I won't try and do it badly off the top of my head, but there is something when you really have that intent that it seems that, and to summarize the quote, the universe sort of goes with it in ways you'd never predict until you actually commit. There's this very strange bit that when you go, you know what, I want to have that conversation, and suddenly the ripples start happening. You know, suddenly you go, actually, I need to come down to where you are. It's like, oh, really? Right. There's a whole thing with Pete and the giraffe coming soon. But, you know, like you would know unpredictably, you couldn't have made that up. And like you're going, I actually live there. You're like, really? So those things happen predictably when you have got that intent for the good reason. And it's an old spiritual thing from the Templars. If your why behind that intentionality is really an egoless why, that's very different than the pretend egoless why. Like, you know, the classic one, I want to go feed homeless people pizzas so I can get YouTube views, is very different than I actually want to feed homeless people, right? There's a bit of a...
Well, it's interesting because obviously this time next week, I'm going to be going to the airport. I'm going to Uganda. You know, I've been working with someone there for 5 years. We support 101 children. And I don't do that because, you know, I want to get attention. I do want to get attention. That's the thing.
For them and raising money. Exactly. Yeah.
And actually, he named his daughter Hannah after my wife. I've never met this child. I went to Uganda 2.5 years ago. But a life of service is a life of value, but I suppose it's picking where you want to serve. I heard, what's his name? Alex Hormozy being interviewed by Tony Robbins.
Yeah,
and Tony Robbins ended up schooling him, you know, and I thought that was beautiful because he said to Alex Hormozy, he said, because Alex said, oh, I don't, you know, I give, but I don't get anything in return. I don't feel anything. And I thought what Tony Robbins said, he says, yeah, you're giving to something that you don't value what you're giving to. Why don't you give something to something you value? And he says, what do you value? And he said, young entrepreneurs that are, you know, they need some help. He goes, those are the people you should be giving to. And then you could just see his eyes light up. Because if you're giving for the sake of giving, you're probably not going to get too fulfilled. If you're giving because that giving gives you something in return, then it can give you a sense of fulfillment and peace, which is what everyone really is probably looking for, right? Peace and contentment.
I go back to, I don't know everybody, but if they knew what it could give them, I think yes. And there's a bit of that. And I love what you're bringing up. And Alex and Tony are great examples. Like there was where they are, and the impact. And I think I don't normally share it. And you asked a bit earlier, you know, what are we really up to? I saw back in 2002, thanks to a thing I went to, that if we could find a way to share all those things that work that we all have, your nuggets of wisdom around the world and vice versa, generally we'd all do better. You know what I mean? Like we live, and what I've been working on with open source, with all this stuff we can now do, hyperoptic in the UK, gigabit internet things, right? Was also that we could have billions of people sharing basically for free what used to be locked away in the master wisdom keepers, and not my stuff. Right? I've got some cool stuff, but actually there's so much more cool stuff out there, but most people don't know who Alex is, don't know who Layla is, don't know who Tony is, don't know who Sage is, don't know who Jarek is, don't know their 30-year journeys. They've forgotten the Jim Rohn bit of the story, and I'll just bring Jim in. Yeah. Tony wouldn't have been Tony without Jim Rohn.
Well, I've been thinking about Jim Rohn when you were speaking. As many times I was going to say that Jim Rohn said that, you know, the same winds, it's the same winds blow us all. It's the saying of the sail. You know, we're all going somewhere, but if you don't set the sail, the same winds are going to blow us all. If you set the sail, you've got a chance of getting there because you've got a destination, you've got an idea of who you are and where you're going. The same winds blow us all. If you don't know who you are, you know, if you don't know what you stand for, you're going to fall for things.
Yep, 25 years. And yeah. I'm laughing at it now. And I think also tied to that humility thing you touched on, I think also being able to go, this is what I'm intending, and I know, or intentions, I don't know how to say it the right way. Like, this is where I think the North Star is, but also being intelligently adult open enough to be open to that shifting and growing and optimizing.
Yeah.
Like, there's a balance between, you say, somebody goes, don't do that, do this, and you go, okay, and off down their rabbit hole, versus actually going,
Stop.
Yeah, exactly.
Let me stop before I do anything, and raise my own awareness and contemplate before I do anything, because we're all being sold something, right? We've all been manipulated. That's why that whole thing of these days, just be careful what you look at, because if you look at something, you're going to be fed that thing, so that you lose the power of your own mind, as the Buddhists call it, the dukkha, or the Hindu, they call it maya, the dysfunction of the mind, the illusion of the mind. If you can't observe what your mind is doing, that's why you've got to stop, because it's only through stopping you can start to build a relationship with you and your thoughts. Otherwise, they say there's one born every day, or there's a sucker. We've all been sucked into something, and you're lost. Come back, stop.
Yeah, so much. It's the old Fight Club movie. We fill our houses with stuff that you don't really know why you've got it years later, right?
Yeah.
You sort of go, what have I got all this stuff for? It's really fascinating. Yeah. I do want to get a bit practical before we wrap up.
Of course.
I love the stopping. I love it. If somebody's there going, Pete, I hear you, I have to stop, what's something they can go do to help them get that? Is it like go to Woodland? Is it journal? What's your, because many of us don't stop. There is a non-stop monkey brain. There is the work brain. What can help them actually stop in Pete's world?
Well, I do have one other tattoo, and it says breathe. So the most intentional thing you will ever do is bring your awareness to your breath. So just taking a moment to observe your breath changes everything. So it's as obvious and as simple as that sounds. Observing the breath, seeing the difference between the in-breath and the out-breath. Most people will probably observe that their out-breath is quite short. And that's the focus of your attention, is just to make the out-breath a little longer, and hum. Because, of course, when you hum, well, try humming and breathing in. I think it's impossible. I'm sure there's someone out there that can do it. Ventriloquist, perhaps. Humming definitely calms the nervous system. Humming seems to do something to the 12th cranial nerve that just relaxes. You're sending a message to your body. If you find it hard to stop and pause, it's because your body is probably full of adrenaline and cortisol. Your body's in survival mode because your thinking is... I'm working at the moment about our relationship to time. I'm fascinated by what's your relationship to time?
You'll love I need to introduce you to Terry at some point. Grief recovery guy, amazing human, ex-pilot, and Inca Chicana Quiero, like crazy dude. So the whole circular time, linear time, present time, and the whole timeline NLP world. So I understand differently this Mayan thing about living in nows and how they construct up, but also sometimes at the effect of it, sometimes like I honestly think that time is non-linear, and there's a bit of like a dolphin flowing in wave in time. You know what I mean? There's sort of this morning, then there's now, and now it's 2 hours have gone. Yeah.
And that's comes from stopping, to be able to, I don't know, tap into that world, or to be able to see that world of time. But breath is the thing that connects everything, because obviously without it, there is no life. And as simple as that sounds, that simple practice of just bringing your awareness, even if it's to one breath, you're immediately bringing yourself into the moment. And that's where things can start to change. So, yeah.
I love it. And so it's been around the block. That humming thing, if I'd been told that before, I'd forgotten. because I like, you know what I mean? Like most of us, the breath stuff, we've come across box breath now and other bits. Somehow to get you connected to Michael Acton Smith, that'll be fun. I don't know how we do that. Do you know Michael already from Calm? There'll be some ways. So
There's always a way.
he runs the Calm app, and they've got some cool stuff. But also the breath piece of this is a whole other conversation, and that humming thing's really nice because it isn't Jedi level training. It's actually just breathe in and hum. Notice what happens. Yeah.
So the biggest impact I've had in the world with the work that I do was very unexpected. So I have written books, and some people know my face and everything. But the biggest impact I've had is through some meditations and affirmations that are on YouTube that you don't see me, and millions of people have listened to these things, and that's kind of, I know that's part of my place on earth is around mindfulness and meditation, and that's the real me. This other performance me of the motivational person, that was an act. I can still do it, but that's not who I am. I'm someone much deeper than just putting on a performance.
You're touching on the ontology piece, which is, again, the stuff we don't normally reveal in our magician's tricks. There's the human being, and they go, what do you do? It's like, what do you need? I can do lots of things. None of that. And the problem, I think, most of the quotes become cliches, right? There's before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. I don't think I'm enlightened. I think there's stuff. But there's the experience of it is not the conversation. And my sense with you, Pete, there's a world going to open up that you can't knock doors into, and somebody goes, hey, could you come be part of this thing? And I weirdly think we need more people like you helping run the stuff where lots of stuff's going on, because often the people running the businesses don't have that inner world handle. Do you know what I mean? There's sort of this, the count, but the people that get the calm inner, the centeredness, don't want to go work 20-hour days in the banks and the governments and the businesses because it's a whole thing. But maybe AI changes the game. Maybe we change how we work and we have a whole different future.
I think that's definitely happening. But who knows?
I want to honor your time today. I know you've got a lot on preparing for Uganda and everything else. I love that you've got the Hannah documentary out there to watch. I must admit, I need to continue and complete it because I struggle to watch those things. Like Daniel Blake.
Then don't.
No, but it's good for my soul, right? It's a good thing.
I don't know.
We'll see. It's a choice. It's a choice. Did you ever watch Daniel Blake?
Yes. Yeah.
Like that one, I watched it 3 times. I bawl every time. I think it's essential watching, because otherwise we become coddled. There is a bit of don't torture yourself, but actually allow yourself to crack the shell a bit, you know?
Well, if you or when you watch it, Hannah says this a couple of times, and it was just get on with it. And it became intentional thinking. So I wonder if people do watch it. I mean, literally, I've had so many people contacting me, writing beautiful. There's a theme that within the emails I'm getting, that Hannah's philosophy of just get on with it. Because she realized there were times where she didn't feel like it, but she had to get on with it. What is it that you, please feel free to let me know after you've watched it. I'd love to know, what do you feel you need to get on with that will require intention?
You remind me of Sean Stevenson. Do you ever know Sean back in the day? Amazing human, another time, but similar book about get off your butt. And when you know Sean's story, it's like, darn it. You know what I mean? Like when you get those people saying, just get on with it, eventually you can choose to ignore it or not. I may have already covered it, Pete. Like the one takeaway seems to be do stop, find a way to pause, to hum. And then, like you say, with your wife's suggestion there, get on with it, do those things that need to be done. I hope you've enjoyed today. I've enjoyed getting to share a bit more of Pete with you in a different way, actually, by the way. I've known you on and off virtually and otherwise for a long time. I'm seeing a different side of you today myself, so I'm loving this and good reminders. If you know anybody else to have conversations like this, let me know, and I hope to have more of these in the future. If somebody's listening and they want to learn more about you, they want to watch the documentary, where's the best place for them to sort of start their Pete journey?
Just watch the film, which is at teamhannah.com, and if you want to hear the journey that I went on, I mean, one of the things I'm most proud of is, after Hannah's funeral, I flew to America to be with my coach, and we just went outside and I started recording some conversations, and I turned them into some podcasts, which shows a 3-year journey, but most of the conversations took place in 10 months. of my journey of dealing with grief and setbacks. And that podcast is called Stop to Think. So that's what I would encourage people to do if they feel so inclined.
Awesome. And Pete, thank you again for coming on, for being so real, for bringing up what you've done. And any final thoughts before we wrap up for today?
Well, apart from thank you, and for those of you that are watching, I just love that red phone. You've got a red phone behind you, the old phones, the dial-up phones.
The bat phone.
Reminds me of Batman.
That's what it's there for.
Yeah, of course. And it's like, answer the call, the phone is ringing, answer the call. What are you being called to? So that's always a reminder to me of what am I being called to? And I believe I'm answering that call right now. So thank you so much.
And you're going to nudge me. And if you find yourself thinking about one of your friends, one of those people that wind you up, call them. Because there's nothing worse than, again, I'll be a bit inappropriate, but appropriate that you can handle it, Pete, right? So my Tai Chi teacher, who was like mentor, friend, awesome, Catherine Allen, since I was 15, she had cancer and it was a 6-month journey. So we had lunch in London. She sends me a text and goes, some stuff like, do you want to learn like the hard way, the slow way, what's going on? I call her, she's crying. And it was over lockdown and we never met. Yeah. Partly because it was that time when you couldn't, but it was those moments when you go, I'll give her the call next week. And we kept in touch, right? We had an amazing relationship, but too many people you put off thinking you've got next week, you've got next month. And often they need that phone call. So Hannah saying, get on with it, I think is a good nudge for us to have. And so, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pete. And thank you for listening to this episode of Pause, Stop, Reset. See you next time. Bye for now. Once again, I'm Simon Hedley. Thank you for listening to this episode of Pause, Stop, Reset, which is brought to you by the team at simonx.com and published by thesimpleidea.com. So you get maximum value, and to access all the bonuses and gifts, make sure to head to pause.reset.com, register and explore the portal. And if you're looking for great people, check out onesmartnetwork.com. If you've enjoyed the show, do give us a positive review, subscribe, and share this episode with friends. I can't wait to share our next episode with you. Till then, remember you can always choose to pause, stop, reset.